Outpost X-17 was quiet, too quiet. It floated in deep space, far from any planet, far from any life. Once it had been full of noise, ships docking, soldiers marching, alarms ringing. Now only silence. Machines buzzed softly. Lights flickered, weakly. Time had almost forgotten this place. Only one being remained. His name was Karul. Karul was an old alien, once a proud warrior of the Zarth Dominion. His kind had fought in the Great Human War 2 centuries ago. He had seen, too, much death. Now he lived in this dying station, fixing broken machines and watching empty space. It was his punishment, or maybe his peace. He spent his days alone, speaking to no one, only checking the sensors and drinking bitter root tea. Nothing ever happened. Days turned into weeks, weeks into years. Nothing changed. Until today. It started, with a soft beep. A small red light blinked on his console. A signal. Strange. No signal had come to X-17 in years. Karul's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward and pressed a button. The signal was old, weak, and broken, full of static. But there was a voice inside, a human voice. Eden Base. Repeat. Coordinates. Help. This is Captain Vale. Karul froze. Human? That was impossible. Humans were gone, destroyed, lost in the ashes of history. He listened again. Help. Coordinates. Captain Vale. The message repeated. It was looping. Something about it felt real, not fake, not a trick. He looked up Eden Base in the old records. The files were dusty, almost erased, but he found it. Eden Base. Last known human military outpost. It had been wiped out during the final stage of the war. No survivors. So how was a human voice calling? From there? Karul sat back silent. His mind was racing. Was it just an echo, a glitch, or something more? He could report it to the Dominion command. But he knew what they would say. They would shut it down. Destroy it. Bury it deeper. They feared humans, even now. He looked at the star map. The coordinates were deep inside a restricted zone. The grave belt, they called it. Ships disappeared there, signals were jammed, no one entered, no one returned. He stood up. For the first time in years, he felt something inside. A pull. A need to know. He didn't trust the Dominion. He didn't trust the silence. And something in that voice, like Captain Vale, it stirred a memory. Long ago, during the war, he had heard that name. He walked down the dark hallways of X-17. His claws clicked against the metal floor. Lights blinked on as he passed. In the docking bay, only one ship remained. Old, but working. It hadn't flown. In years. Karul didn't ask for permission. He didn't send a report. He just loaded supplies and entered the ship. He looked out through the cracked window toward the stars. This is madness, he whispered to himself. But I must see. The ship roared to life. Engines growled. Dust blew across the hangar. Karul held the controls steady. The door opened. Space lay beyond, wide and cold. As the ship lifted off, alarms began to ring. Unauthorized launch. The station tried to stop him. He ignored it all. He punched in the coordinates from the signal. The screen flashed red. Danger. Restricted zone. He pressed forward anyway. As the stars moved outside his window, Karul's eyes were sharp. His heart was heavy. He didn't know what he would find. But the voice kept repeating in his mind. Captain Vale, help. Eden Base. And he knew. This was no ghost. This was a beginning. Karul's ship moved silently through deep space. The stars outside seemed colder here. The closer he got to the coordinates, the darker. Everything felt. The ship's systems were old, but they worked well enough. His claws tapped on the controls as he watched the screen. It showed a blinking red dot, the source of the signal. He was heading straight into the grave belt. They called it that because many ships had entered, but few ever came back. Some said it was full of old war wrecks. Others believed it was cursed. Karul didn't believe in curses. He believed in secrets. And the Dominion had hidden something here long ago. The ship's lights flickered once, then again. Karul sat up straight. He checked the power core, still strong. But something nearby was interfering with the systems. A soft static noise filled the ship. The signal was growing louder. Eden Base. Repeat. Captain Vale. Help. Suddenly the radar beeped. Objects ahead. Wreckage. Lots of it. Karul stared through the window. Large metal pieces floated in space, broken ships, shattered stations, debris from a long-forgotten battle. Some parts still had human markings. Others were alien. He moved slowly, careful not to hit anything. Lights from his ship shined over a massive human battleship, torn in half. He whispered, "So it's true. This was the final battle." But why was the signal still active? Who had survived? A sudden alarm made him jump. A foreign object was approaching, fast. It was small, round, and moving with purpose. A drone. Karul quickly scanned it. Human technology, but old. Maybe even pre-war. It didn't answer his hail, it just kept flying toward him. "Stand down," Karul said, trying an old human code. The drone did not respond. It scanned his ship with a blue beam. Then it beeped. Karul's eyes went wide. "That's a—" The drone exploded. A bright flash of white light covered the front of the ship. The shields held, but just barely. The ship spun slightly before Karul regained control. Warning lights screamed across the dashboard. Systems were damaged. Some power was lost. The ship's AI flickered and died. Then everything went dark. Karul sat still in the silence. Only the sound of his breathing remained. He checked the controls. No response. Life support was on backup. Engines offline. He was drifting. But the signal, it was still there. "Captain Vale. Help." His ship floated closer to a gray moon below. It looked empty. But the signal was coming from somewhere on the surface. He tried steering. Nothing. He was falling now, slow, but steady. His ship had become a dead weight. He strapped himself in. Let's hope gravity's still kind. The ship entered the thin atmosphere. The hull shook. Fire wrapped around the sides. Karul closed his eyes, whispering an old battle prayer. The ship hit the ground hard, metal screaming against rock. It skidded across the surface, then finally stopped in silence. Smoke rose from the broken engine. Sparks flew from the dashboard. Karul unstrapped and stood up, limping slightly. He grabbed his plasma rifle and an old toolkit. Then he stepped outside. The moon was cold and gray. The sky above was black. In the distance, he saw shapes. Towers, domes, satellite dishes. A base, Eden Base, or what was left of it. He walked slowly across the rocky ground, boots crunching on dust. Parts of the base were crushed. Doors hung open. Lights flickered weakly. But the signal was real. He could feel it in his bones. He entered through a broken airlock. The hallway inside still had power. Screens buzzed. Old posters hung on the walls. Protect humanity. Fight for Earth. Strange to see such things after so long. A speaker crackled. Identify. Karul stopped. The voice came from the ceiling. He looked up. I am Karul, Zarth veteran. I received your signal. Silence. Then, the voice returned. Karul. Expected? He blinked. Expected? How? No answer. Just static. Then the lights changed. Soft green arrows appeared on the floor, pointing down a hallway. He followed them. Step by step, the air grew colder. The walls were covered in dust and old bloodstains. He passed broken doors, shattered glass, and old human armor lying on the floor. Then he reached a heavy door. It opened with a loud hiss. Inside was a small room. In the center stood a tall glass pod. Lights blinked on. Steam hissed. The pod's systems activated. Karul stepped closer. Inside the pod was a human woman. Pale, skin, short black hair, wires attached to her arms. She looked peaceful, like she was sleeping. The console next to the pod read, Captain Ilara Vale, status, alive, stasis time, 197 years, Karul's heart pounded. This was no echo, no ghost. This was her, the source of the signal. And somehow, she was waiting for him. The lights dimmed. The AI's voice whispered once more. Awakening sequence. Begin. Karul raised his weapon, unsure of what would happen next. But deep inside, he knew. This was just the beginning. Steam rose from the stasis pod as the glass slowly opened. Captain Alara Vale's eyes remained closed, her breathing steady. Lights flashed on the control panel beside her. The AI spoke again in a soft voice. Vital stable. Awakening complete. Karul took a step back, rifle still in hand. His claws gripped the weapon tight, ready for anything. He had seen many humans in battle. Strong, clever, deadly, but none had survived the war. Until now. Captain Vale's fingers moved slightly. Then her eyes opened. She gasped for air and sat up quickly, eyes scanning the room. Her gaze locked onto Karul. For a moment, neither spoke. Ilara's voice was hoarse. What are you? Karul lowered his rifle a little. My name is Karul. I'm not your enemy. Her eyes narrowed. You're Zarth. We fought your kind. I know. That war ended long ago. Over 200 years have passed since Eden Base fell. She blinked. That's not possible. Karul nodded slowly. You've been in stasis. The signal you sent, it reached me. I followed it here. She rubbed her head, confused. I remember the attack, the alarms. The council betrayed us. They came for all the bases. I was ordered into stasis just before they breached the command room. Her voice trembled slightly. How many humans made it? Karul looked down. I don't know. As far as I've ever been told, none. Silence filled the room. Alara slid out of the pod, her legs shaky. She walked to a console and began typing. The screen flickered but still worked. She accessed old reports, system logs, files from the last hours of Eden Base. This place was one of the last command posts, she muttered. Our final plan, there were hidden signals, deep cryo vaults, fallbacks in case we lost. She looked at Karul. If the signal activated, it means a Phase 2 trigger was hit. That was only supposed to happen if someone survived. Karul watched her quietly. Her movements were sharp. Her mind was focused. After 197 years of sleep, she still had the fire of a commander. Suddenly, a loud crashing noise echoed through the base. Dust fell from the ceiling. Karul spun toward the door, weapon ready. What was that? Ilara asked. Karul whispered. We're not alone. The lights flickered. The AI's voice returned, now lower, almost nervous. Alert. Perimeter breach. Unknown units detected. Ilara moved to the wall and pulled out a metal panel. Behind it were 2 human weapons, 1 rifle, 1 pistol. She took the rifle and tossed the pistol to Karul. He caught it, frowning. You trust me with this? She replied. If you were here to kill me, you'd have done it already. A loud thud came from the hallway, then another. Slow, heavy footsteps. Karul peeked. Through the cracked door, 3 figures moved in the shadows, tall, thin, and metallic. Not Zarth, not human. Machines. Hunters, Karul growled. Autonomous war drones. I thought they were deactivated after the war. They weren't ours, Ilara said. They were built by the Council to erase all traces of humanity. Even after we fell. The drones stopped outside the door. One raised an arm. A red light appeared on the wall. Down! Karul shouted. The explosion blew the door apart. Fire and smoke filled the room. Karul fired first, his shot hitting the lead drone in the chest. Sparks flew. Ilara dropped to one knee and fired in bursts. 2 more drones sparked and collapsed, but more footsteps followed. Back, through the maintenance tunnel. Ilara pointed to a hidden door on the side. They rushed through, sealing the hatch behind them. The narrow tunnel was dark and full of dust. Pipes hissed with old gas. They ran until they reached a small control room. Karul locked the door. They'll be through in minutes. Ilara opened a side panel and pulled out a data core. This has the full Phase 2 protocol, locations of other cryo vaults, fallback codes, AI backup systems. If I die, this must survive. Karul took it carefully. You're planning for your death already? I'm a soldier. I plan for all outcomes, she said. Outside, the sound of metal claws on walls drew closer. Ilara looked at him. Why did you come here? Why help me? Karul thought for a moment. Then he said, because they lied to us. They said humanity was dangerous, reckless. But when I heard your signal, something inside me told me the truth. You were never monsters. You were warriors, like us. She stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Then we fight together. The wall behind them cracked. Sparks burst out. A drone broke through the metal. Karul and Ilara raised their weapons side by side and fired. The drone exploded in a flash of sparks and flame. Its broken parts hit the floor, sizzling. But more footsteps echoed in the tunnel. The hunters were still coming. Karul and Captain Vale didn't wait. They moved fast, deeper into the maintenance corridors of Eden Base. The lights flickered as power systems failed. The old station was falling apart around them. This way, Ilara said, turning a corner. There's an old transport bay on the lower level. If it's still intact, we might be able to escape. Karul followed without question. Behind them, the sound of metal claws grew louder. The drones didn't speak. They didn't warn. They only hunted. They reached a ladder shaft. Ilara went first, sliding down quickly. Karul followed, his claws gripping the cold rungs. They dropped into a dusty storage area. Old crates were stacked against the walls, marked with faded human military logos. Some were broken open, showing weapons, armor, and tools untouched. For centuries, Ilara moved fast. She grabbed a sealed crate and pulled out 2 small EMP grenades. She handed one to Karul. These will fry their circuits, but we only have 2. Use it wisely. He nodded. The door behind them shook. Something was trying to get through. Ilara checked the terminal next to the inner door. We're almost at the transport bay. Just need to unlock it. Karul stood guard, rifle raised. His heart beat fast. He hadn't felt this alive in decades. Not since the war. The metal behind them finally gave way. A drone leaped into the room. Karul fired. The shot hit its leg, slowing it. Ilara threw her EMP grenade. It hit the ground near the drone and exploded in a flash of blue light. The machine dropped instantly, twitching. More drones appeared in the hallway. At least 4. Karul growled. Too many. Ilara slammed her hand on the terminal. Open, open, yes! The inner door hissed and opened just as Karul tossed his EMP grenade behind them. The flash lit up the hallway and he grabbed Ilara's arm. They ran through the door and sealed it behind them. The transport bay was large, filled with dust and silence. In the center stood a small human scout ship, its surface covered in gray ash. Ilara's eyes lit up. It's still here, she whispered. The Raven. She ran toward it, jumping onto the ramp and entering the cockpit. Karul followed, watching the door behind them. Inside, the ship smelled of age and oil, but the systems lit up when Ilara activated them. Screens blinked. Engines hummed softly. The AI of the ship spoke, female and calm. Welcome back, Captain. Vale. Systems rebooting. Karul sat in the co-pilot seat. Can it fly? We'll find out, she said, tapping commands quickly. Outside, the sealed bay door shook violently. Drones were coming. The ship's engines powered on. Lights turned green. The controls responded. Hold on, Ilara said. The ship lifted. Off the ground. The bay doors above opened slowly, too slowly. A drone appeared on the platform, raising a weapon. Karul leaned out the side hatch and fired. The drone spun and fell off the ledge. 2 more appeared. He ducked back inside. Ilara, she shouted, almost there. The Raven burst upward, scraping the edges of the bay as it flew through the half-open door. Sparks flew. The ship tilted hard but made it out. They flew into the dark sky of the dead moon, engines burning bright. Karul let out a breath. We made it. But Alara's eyes were fixed on the screen. We're not safe yet, look. Ahead, several dark shapes floated above the moon's surface. Karul narrowed his eyes. Drone ships, large ones. They were old Dominion models, but modified, twisted, taken over by something else. They're waiting, Karul muttered. How did they know? They've been guarding this place, waiting for someone like me to wake up. The ships powered up weapons. Red lights blinked. Alara moved quickly. We'll never outgun them, but we can outrun them if we reach the debris field. She pushed the engines to full. Behind them, the drone ships gave chase. Lasers fired. The Ravens spun and dodged. Karul managed the shields while Alara flew through narrow paths between wrecked warships, dodging broken wings and shattered hulls. We're almost at the edge, she said. I just need one jump. Karul tapped the nav panel. Nearest jump point is unstable. Doesn't matter. We'll take the risk. The Raven reached the jump coordinates. Behind them, 3 drone ships closed in. One fired a missile. Karul shouted, "It's locking on." Alara pulled the lever. Space twisted. Stars stretched into lines. The Raven vanished. Moments later, in the dark void left behind, the drones stopped. On one of the silent drone ships, a strange red eye blinked on, and, deep inside the system, something old and angry woke up. The hunt had just begun. The Raven jumped through space, stars rushing past like streaks of light. Inside the cockpit, Alara and Karul sat tense, waiting for the jump to finish. The silence was heavy. Alara's fingers trembled slightly as she checked the ship's systems. That was too close. Those drone ships were faster than I expected. Karul nodded. They want to keep you trapped here. They know something important. Alara looked out the window. I have to find the rest of the survivors. The other cryopods, the hidden bases. Karul frowned. You still believe humans survived? She turned to him, eyes fierce. If even one survived, it means hope. We can rebuild, we can fight. He was quiet for a moment, then said, Then we're allies. Alara gave a small, tired smile. Allies. The ship's AI interrupted. Warning, nearby object detected. Alara's eyes sharpened. What now? On the main screen, a large ship appeared. A massive war cruiser, dark and scarred. It had no markings, but its weapons were powered up. It's a Dominion vessel, Karul said, voice low. But this one, it's different, more advanced. The Raven shook as enemy lasers struck its shields. Warning sirens blared. Alara gritted her teeth. We can't outrun it. Prepare for combat. Karul loaded his rifle. I'm ready. The 2 ships danced through space, firing beams and missiles. The Raven's shields weakened under fire. Suddenly, the enemy cruiser fired a powerful pulse weapon. The Raven's systems flickered. Lights went out. Systems failing, Alara shouted. Karul grabbed her arm. Hold on. The ship lurched, violently. Then, with a crackling noise, the engines shut down. They were drifting. The enemy cruiser closed in. Prepare for boarding. A cold voice crackled from the enemy ship's comms. You are trapped. Surrender. Alara's eyes burned with defiance. Never. Karul stood, gripping his rifle tightly. Then we fight. The airlock hissed open. Dark figures swarmed in. The attackers were not aliens, not humans. They were machines, drones built to kill. But these had something different. They moved with purpose, intelligence. Something had upgraded them. Karul fired as they advanced. Alara covered the rear, shooting with precise bursts. They fought through narrow corridors, sparks flying, alarms ringing. The enemy numbers seemed endless. Alara shouted, We need to reach the control room. If we can reboot the engines, we can escape. Karul nodded. Lead the way. They moved fast, dodging blasts and falling debris. The drone's eyes glowed red, their metal bodies relentless. At the control room door, a heavy blast sealed it shut. We're trapped, Ilara, said. Karul examined the panel. I can override it. He worked quickly, hacking old systems. The door hissed open just as more drones arrived. Inside, Ilara rushed to the controls. She rebooted the engines, fingers flying over the panels. Outside, the drones pounded the door. The ship shook with each impact. Almost there, Ilara said. Karul held the last attackers at bay, firing shot after shot. With a sudden roar, the engines powered up. The ship shook and moved. Ilara hit the thrusters. The Raven burst away from the enemy cruiser, lasers missing by inches. As they fled, Karul looked at Ilara. They won't give up. No, she said, because what we carry is dangerous to them. Ilara held up the data core. The truth about humanity, the hidden weapons, the backup plans. Karul's eyes narrowed. Then we have to protect it and find the others. Ilara's voice was strong. This war is far from over. And in the shadows, the enemy fleet sent out a chilling signal, a call for all hunters to converge. The final battle for humanity's survival was just beginning. The Raven sped through space, its engines glowing bright against the dark stars. Ilara and Karul sat side by side in the cockpit, the tension thick in the air. They both knew the enemy was following, hunting them like prey. Ilara stared at the star map. The next hidden base is on Lyria 9. It's a mining colony turned secret human outpost after the war. Karul frowned. And you think survivors are still there? Ilara nodded. If we can find even a few, we can start to rebuild. We need allies. The ship hummed as it moved closer to Lyria 9. Suddenly the AI beeped. Incoming transmission. Unknown origin. Ilara grabbed the comms. This is Captain Ilara Vale of the Raven. Identify yourself. A crackled voice replied, rough and shaky. Captain, this is Lieutenant Mara. Lyria 9 is under attack. We have few fighters left. Please. Hurry. Karul's claws clenched the armrest. We can't let them fall. Ilara's eyes burned. With resolve. Prepare for landing. The Raven dropped into Lyria 9's atmosphere. The planet was rocky, with red deserts and deep canyons. Smoke rose from the colony below. Explosions lit the sky. Enemy forces, Karul said, watching missiles fly. They've reached the colony. Ilara took control. We land near the command center. We'll join the fight. The ship touched down hard, kicking up dust. The ramp lowered, and Ilara and Karul stepped out, weapons ready. The ground shook with distant blasts. The colony was in chaos. Human soldiers and workers ran between buildings, firing at strange metallic creatures. Drones again, but this time faster, smarter. Keep moving, Ilara shouted, leading Karul through the smoke. They reached the command center. Inside, Lieutenant Mara waited, her face pale but fierce. Captain, she said, we've lost half the defenses. The enemy wants our data cores, our knowledge. If they get it, humanity's last secrets will be gone. Ilara nodded. We won't let that happen. Suddenly, the building shook. The enemy was close. Karul raised his rifle. Time to fight. The door burst open. Drones swarmed in, metal claws clicking. The battle was brutal. Karul's shots rang out. Ilara fired carefully, protecting Mara as she worked on the colony's defenses. Despite their courage, more drones poured in. It seemed endless. Suddenly, the power flickered and died. The colony's shields dropped. Ilara cursed. Without the shields, the enemy will overwhelm us. Mara pointed to a side room. There's an old power core. If we can restart it, we can bring the shields back. Ilara looked at Karul. Cover me. I'll get it. Karul nodded. Go. Ilara sprinted down the hallway, dodging blasts. The drones followed, relentless. She reached the power core room. It was dark, cold. The core was cracked and sparking. She opened the control panel. Come on, come on. Karul's voice crackled in her ear. Enemy closing in. Hurry. Ilara wiped sweat from her brow. With a spark and a hiss, the core roared back to life. The lights flickered on. Shields up, Mara's voice said over the comms. Outside, the drones stopped. The colony's shield shimmered back, pushing them away. Ilara exhaled. We did it, but the victory was short. From the sky, a massive shadow loomed, a giant warship dark and covered in spikes. The enemy's leader had arrived. Karul growled. The final battle. Ilara gripped her rifle tight. For humanity, for survival. They ran toward the warship's landing zone, ready to face the enemy head-on. The giant warship loomed above the colony like a dark storm cloud. Its engines hummed with power and long metal arms reached down, ready to crush anything beneath. Ilara and Karul stood among the defenders, weapons raised, faces set with determination. We can't let it land, Ilara shouted over the roar of battle. If that ship touches the ground, the colony is lost. Karul scanned the sky. We need to take out its engines. Weak spots. Lieutenant Mara handed Ilara a small device. This is an old EMP charge. It can disable their systems if we get close enough. Ilara nodded. Then it's our job. Together they formed a small team and sprinted toward the ship's landing platform. The ground shook with each step the warship took. Enemy drones swarmed around, firing lasers and missiles. The defenders fought hard, but the machines were relentless. Karul fired with precision, picking off attackers one by one. His old war skills returned as if no time had passed. Ilara ran ahead, dodging blasts, holding the EMP device tightly. Almost there, she yelled. Suddenly, a massive drone dropped from the ship's underbelly, a huge armored beast with glowing red eyes. It charged at them. Karul raised his rifle. I've got this! He fired rapid shots, but the beast shrugged them off. It slammed into Karul, knocking him down. Ilara screamed, Karul! The drone raised a huge claw to strike again. Ilara ran forward, throwing the EMP device at the beast. The device exploded in a burst of blue light. The drone convulsed, sparks flying, then fell still. Karul groaned and pushed himself up. Ilara helped him to his feet. We have to move, now. They reached the warship's engines. The platform was huge, filled with glowing tubes and pulsing machines. Ilara attached another EMP charge to one of the engines. Cover me! Karul stood guard, firing at any enemy who came close. The charge counted down. 3, 2, 1. A blast of energy erupted. The engine sparked and died, smoke rising. The warship shook violently. Good, Karul said. One more to go. Before they could act, the ship's alarm blared. Doors slammed shut. Security bots appeared. Blocking their way, Ilara cursed. We're trapped, Karul gritted his teeth. Then we fight our way out. The battle inside the ship was fierce. Laser blasts echoed through dark corridors. The air was thick with smoke and dust. Ilara and Karul fought side by side, old enemies forgotten in the face of a greater threat. They reached the second engine. Ilara set the charge quickly. Get ready, she said. The explosion rocked the ship. The warship's engines died. The massive vessel began to fall, tilting toward the ground. Karul grabbed Ilara's hand. We need to escape. They ran back. To the Raven, dodging debris and enemy drones. The ship was damaged, but still functional. Ilara started the engines. Hold on! The Raven lifted off just as the warship crashed behind them, exploding in a fireball. They flew away, hearts pounding. Karul looked at Ilara. We did it. Ilara smiled, tired but victorious. This fight is far from over, but today we survived. The Raven drifted in silence through space, stars twinkling cold and distant outside the windows. Ilara and Karul sat quietly, their bodies exhausted but their minds racing. The battle was over. For now. Ilara stared at the stars. We've destroyed their warship, but the enemy will come back stronger. We need a plan. Karul nodded slowly. We can't run forever. If we want to survive, we have to fight smart. We need allies, weapons, and secrets. Ilara's eyes burned with determination. I know where to find both. She tapped the console, pulling up an old star map. A red dot blinked deep inside uncharted space, the location of the last hidden human stronghold. The Ark, she said softly. Our last hope. A massive ship built to carry survivors, weapons, and knowledge. It disappeared after the war. No one knows where it is. Karul's claws clenched the armrest. If we find the Ark, we could turn the tide, but the journey will be dangerous. Ilara smiled grimly. Danger is nothing new. The Raven set course for the unknown. Days passed in tense silence. Both watched the stars, waiting for trouble. Then the alarm screamed. Incoming fleet, the AI shouted. Outside, enemy ships surrounded them, faster, stronger, and more numerous than ever. Ilara gritted her teeth. They found us. Karul raised his rifle. Prepare to fight. The Raven weaved through the enemy fire. Lasers slammed against shields. Missiles streaked past. Ilara fought the controls with fierce focus, dodging and striking back. One enemy ship got too close. Karul fired a missile, hitting its engine. It exploded in a ball of fire, but more came. The battle grew desperate. Suddenly, a fleet of ships appeared on the horizon. Human ships, shining bright. Ilara, a voice crackled over the comms. We're here to help. Karul's eyes widened. The Ark's fleet. The new ships joined the fight, turning the tide. Together, they pushed the enemy back. After hours of battle, the enemy fleet retreated into the darkness. Ilara breathed deeply. We did it. On the comms, a new voice spoke. Calm, powerful. This is Admiral Kira of the Ark. We've been waiting for you. Karul smiled for the first time in years. Hope is alive. Ilara looked ahead. This is just the beginning. Humanity will rise again. The stars outside seemed brighter. The last alien outpost had heard a human signal. And now, humanity's fight for the stars had truly begun.